Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Book Bites. And I'm very excited to have Anna Foxkirk join me today. Hi, Anna. Welcome to Book Bites.
Hi, Sandy. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's great to be here.
That's okay. Today, we're going to be talking about indie publishing and your new book, Alice and the Impossible Game, for which we will have a giveaway. So for anyone who asks a question or leaves a comment, either during the live session now, or if you are watching this back, you can still enter. The competition will stay open until 6 o'clock Saturday night, Sydney time, and you'll go in the running to win a copy of Anna's book, which we will talk about in just a moment. But as I said, we're talking about inside indie publishing today. Firstly, for people watching who may not be aware, the difference between indie and traditional. Would you like to explain that for us, Anna?
Yeah, so, and in fact, people get a little bit confused between indie bookshops and indie publishing as well. So when people talk about indie in the writing world nowadays, I think they mean self-publishing, which means that rather than go a more conventional route and be published by one of the publishing houses, either big ones like Penguin or Harlequin or Hachette, or one of the smaller ones, there's lots of fantastic smaller publishing houses as well. They've actually decided that they're going to publish their own books and retain control of that, I guess, that whole process of uploading to digital online retailers, but also they can then get them into libraries and into bookshops as well. But it's controlled by the author rather than the publisher.
That's right. I'm just going to say a couple of hellos. Hi, Julie. Julie's joined us this week. And Stacey is here. Hi, Stacey. Nice to see you. And Janet's also saying hello. Hi, Janet. Lovely to see you as well.
Hello.
So, you have 4 novellas that you've indie published and this new one that we will talk about in just a moment. What for you is the advantage of going indie?
Okay, so I ummed and ahed about this for a long time because I think, I grew up with books my whole life. I'm an avid reader, and I did love the idea, and I still do love the idea of having my books, physical books, in bookstores. And I think also when I started down the writing path, I wanted that sort of acknowledgement and pat on the back that I had written a book that was worthy of being in a bookshop and being read by other people. However, ultimately, I think I've got to that age, Sandy, where I'm actually a little bit of a control freak. My background is military, and I like to be in control of the process. And it's a bit like, it was a question of, okay, it's a business. Do you want to work for somebody else in your working life and have them earn money and have them make the decisions and have them control all that decision making, and ultimately you're an employee? Or do you want to be the employer? Do you want to be the business owner and control what you do, what you write, how you produce it? All those business decisions about your creative output are made by you. So it was a bit like, do I want to be the boss or do I want to be the employee? And ultimately, I need to be the boss.
Excellent. Bev's joined us as well. Hi, Bev. Lovely to see you. And Yvonne has joined us. Lovely to see you again, Yvonne. And Helen's just dropped in as well. Hi, Helen. So, you said control is one of the main things. So that's obviously a very big advantage when you go indie. You get to make all of those decisions yourself. Whereas those of us that are traditional, I have no say in my covers, for example. And, the scheduling, well, not no say in the scheduling. If I'm late, that's on me. But those sorts of things. So that's a fantastic part of the indie process. Are there any challenges in particular that you come up against in the indie process?
Oh, yeah, there's heaps. It's very much a steep learning curve. And I've only really started doing the self-publishing last year. So a little bit about my background. In 2020, I had decided I was going to do self-publishing and go the indie route. And then I had a stroke at the end of the year. And that was a bit of a shake-up for me. I lost a lot of confidence. I unpublished the novellas that I had written. And it took me quite a while to regroup. I started writing historicals for a while. And then I think over the course of the next couple of years, I just finally found myself again and decided, no, actually, I want to not be waiting to have some traditional publisher say, yeah, we want to publish your books. I want to do this myself in my own time. I don't want to be waiting for a year after I've written a book just to see it on the shelf. I want it to be, I don't know, life's short and life's precious. I could have another stroke tomorrow, you know? So I don't want to play that waiting game. I am a little bit impatient as well. So that's really why I ended up deciding last year. And there were a few reasons with that. As you know, one of my historical novels, I was having troubles getting it published. And then I just sort of fell in love with rom-com books again. I think going through that whole COVID pandemic lockdown, I started reading a lot of uplit, rom-com, chick lit, whatever you want to call it, just books that made me feel good about myself, about life, life affirming, rather than a lot of the historical that I'd read previously, which is also a passion of mine. So yeah, I started going down the whole rom-com path again, and that's where I find myself now. So
And
I don't know if I've answered your question. I feel like I've gone around in a big circle. Apologies.
Here on Book Talk, we go where the conversation takes us, so it's all good. Rom-coms are having a bit of a resurgence at the moment. They never went away, but they're certainly having a flourish of popularity at the moment. You mentioned that you know during the pandemic you wanted to read a book that made you feel happy. Do you think that's why rom-coms have had this burst back onto the scene?
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think it's partly that during the pandemic, everybody was more keen on reading books that gave them a real sense of escapism and, you know, maybe feel-good literature. There's a real upsurge in that whole uplit type of book. But I suspect as well, it's because of book talk. And the younger generation who like, I think either there's fantasy or romantasy has had a big resurgence, and also the whole rom-com. And I think it's because there are a lot of young people out there who are having a say in book sales, having a real influence on book sales, and actually that's having a knock-on effect. You're seeing in traditional bookstores now there's way more romance on display, whereas before it was all a bit hush hush and like they didn't like to have it, and especially romance with illustrated covers. People I think traditional booksellers are still not keen to see, and in fact I'm not keen to have book covers that have the torso on the front, you know, the naked torso type thing, the bodice rippers or whatever. That's absolutely perfectly fine if that's what you write and like to read, but that's not me. So yeah, I think those are the reasons why. It's a combination of factors.
I'm going to come to your covers in a moment, but first I just want to say hi to Lee. Now, Lee is familiar to probably most people watching here today, and Lee has done both indie and traditional. So yeah, she's one of those authors that has done both. So I'm sure she's very interested in today's chat and how you're going. Sandra has also joined us. Hi, Sandra. She felt the same during COVID, and yeah, and nowadays what's happening in the Ukraine and in Palestine. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there in the world that's not easy to digest, and rom-coms, yeah, they do take you away. Leonie's made the comment, fingers in pies. That's me.
I don't think I'll be able to shed any light for Leonie. I think she's got way more experience and way more experience than me. But actually, just to go back to that previous comment, I think that's true as well. So I did, during my time in the military, I did 4 tours in Bosnia, and people have often said to me, why don't you write a military, you know, historical or a military romance? And maybe one day I will, but it's a dark place for me to go. And I don't want to really read it, and I don't really want to revisit it at the moment. So in my reading, I'm definitely looking for some escapism and to be traveling to different places or different worlds or different times. So yeah, I think there's probably a lot of people who feel like that as well.
And I think at our heart, any reader is a reader based on mood. You know, there are some days that I can handle a deep and meaningful story. There are other days, you know, where I just want to curl up with something that makes me feel good about things. And I think a lot of us are feeling that way at the moment. So, yeah, it's nice. It's really good to see. I love the fact that rom-coms, you know, are bursting back onto the scene.
That's so true. And sometimes I love like a really light beach read, which is sort of more my type of book. And other days, I love it when you get a more challenging. I do read a little bit of literary fiction, and in my job as a teacher of English and humanities, obviously there's a lot of books on the curriculum that are very thought-provoking and can be quite dark at times. So yeah, I think different moods for different books, and it's they give you different feels and different responses to each book. So yeah, it depends what mood you're in, I think, quite often what you pick up.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we mentioned covers. You design your own covers, Anna. So I wanted to ask you, do you have a graphic design background at all? And how do you decide what's going to go onto your cover?
Good question. So no, I don't have a graphic design background at all. I went to school back in the UK and I did do art A level. So I think I've got a little bit of an artistic eye. Did art history for about a year at university in Scotland. And I've always loved being creative. So I do the odd little bit of painting and things as well, in between my writing. But I just used Canva for them. And it was really a financial decision to begin with. I couldn't afford to pay for an expensive book cover. And I kept trawling, the internet for various designers. And I just couldn't really find anything I loved. And anything I found that I did love was too expensive. So I started playing around with my own designs, and I think this was the first design I did. So this was like a little Christmas Holly Ever After is a little Christmas novella that I did, and it's not like, none of my covers are perfect, but I think they do the job. So you can sort of see it's Christmas with the holly, and I think it talks about the fact that it's romance, in that there's the woman and there's the guy in the background. But no, I do all of mine on Canva. And then sometimes I'll go back on and look at what I've done and go, oh, I really don't like that anymore. And I'll fiddle around with it. And again, one of the joys about being self-published is it's so easy for me to just change the cover or correct something, or, so if I get feedback, because obviously I do make mistakes, and quite often, readers later along down the line will email and say, oh, did you notice you repeated this word in a sentence? And it's so easy for me to then just go into my manuscript, and it's uploaded sort of within 24 hours.
Yeah. I'm just going to bring up that tile I had with the giveaway, because it's got the cover on it, just to leave that up there for a moment so people can see it. So when you were deciding on the cover for Alice and the Impossible Game, what was it that led you to this particular cover? Like, what elements here, were the must-haves on this cover?
So I think my covers are usually a little bit of a reflection of what's in the story, and how I feel the character is. They don't have to be 100% accurate. But this is a bit of a road trip down the coast of Australia. And I wanted it to have that real feel of sea and waves. I wanted the colors, I didn't want them to be muddy at all, because I think in the rom-com genre, you want things to be bright and to pop. And quite often I see books where the colors are a bit muddy. And to me, that doesn't speak rom-com. I think it needs to look a little bit fresh. And so I looked at an awful lot of other covers that I liked. And as you know, I swim almost daily in the sea. So I think all of that was probably playing in the back of my mind and having some influence. And yes, and actually, I've got a good friend in publishing who you know well, Sandy, who said to me one day, just don't have too many colors. And I know some books do it really successfully, like Rachel John's latest with all the colorful books is just beautiful, very jeweled. But I think that was a good bit of advice for me, because I think just keeping the color palette simple and not having too much going on, too many colors, is really good advice.
And when you think of Rachel's cover of The Other Bridget, which is the one that you're referencing there, that color is just thin and across. The rest of it is white, so it's quite a pull this off so people can see. There's a lot of white there to rest the eye,
and that's good. It's gorgeous. Yes. So, maybe I'll just put it down here for now. Otherwise, I'll have things falling on top of me.
Leonie may be hitting you up soon. She's going to have to get you to show her how to change the covers. She gets so frustrated with that end of the business, and yours are.
Thank you so much. That's really nice to hear, because I always worry designing them myself. Like all the advice, I keep flying in the face of, you know, convention and advice, and yeah, everyone says don't design your own covers. And obviously this one actually, and I was saying to you, this is a proof copy, and there are some problems with this that I have now rectified, which is, again, so I've just dropped, my name was too close to the top, so I've dropped that down, and the books have moved down, the birds have moved down here. So it's really easy to make little changes and get those uploaded to either Amazon, or I use Draft2Digital as a sort of, they're an aggregator, a distributor that will send out to online retailers and bookshops worldwide. So yeah, it's really quick and easy once you know what you're doing.
I think you've done a fantastic job, because Alice and the Impossible Game is definitely a cover that if I was just browsing in a shop, I would pick that up and have a look at the blurb on the back. So you've done a fantastic.
That's so good to hear. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
And Sandra's just left a comment that she has loved The Other Bridget. So it's on my pile. I haven't read it yet, but it is there on my pile. So while we're still talking about covers, Leonie said she has paid for covers, because she's a bit like me, I think, in this. It takes 8 hours on Canva to do an Insta post. Oh, it takes me about 10, Leonie. And there's still not a patch on yours. So there you go. So everybody's very happy with what you're doing with your covers, Anna, which is
that
lovely.
Means so much to me. Thank you. That's just, yeah, really reassuring, because I think one of the things about indie publishing is you do sort of put your head on the block, and ultimately it is just down to you. So very easy for me to make mistakes. Thankful that I can usually rectify them pretty quickly. So very happy for readers to give me feedback if I have made mistakes or whatever. And yeah, but no, I'm so pleased that people seem to be like, I've even had people ask me to design their covers. So yeah, I can't be doing it too badly, I hope.
Yeah. Janet's left a lovely comment that readers take so much for granted, you know, when they pick up a book. And that's true, yeah. Unless you're in the industry, you don't know quite what goes on behind the scenes. And obviously when you're indie publishing, you know, so I have my publishing house, you know, that organise my covers and those sorts of things. And I don't get to see it basically until it's done. You know, the publisher briefs the designer goes away and comes up with a few mock-ups. That goes around the publishing house. They all decide which one they like. Then I get sent the cover, and they do that wonderful line that anyone in traditional publishing will know. Lee will probably back me up on this, going, "We hope you love it as much as we do," which means that's it. That's the cover.
Okay.
It's already been through however many eyes it's been through within the publishing house. When you're doing it on your own like that, do you have a group of trusted friends, readers, other writers, family members that you go, here are 3 different covers I'm thinking of for Alice and the Impossible Game? You know, do you sort of test them out that way?
I'm super lucky, because I think Australia, since coming to Australia, I think when I was in the UK, I dabbled with writing. Since coming to Australia, the first thing I did, which was just the absolute best thing, was join Romance Writers of Australia, which is a great network of writing friends. And then from that, I sort of grew to know and made friends with a couple of smaller groups of writing buddies. And then down here on the Mornington Peninsula as well, I've got some great writing friends. So they tend to be my first port of call, because I know, both for, you know, reading the books, they're very honest in their feedback. Whereas if I went to my family, like
they can't be honest.
They're not honest. They say everything's wonderful, but also I don't really, like my husband, I mean, he has read a couple of my novellas, but he doesn't read rom-com. So he doesn't really, it doesn't really mean anything to him. And he's probably not the most artistic. He would probably admit he's not the most artistic person in the world as well. So yeah, I tend to go to writing friends, and I'm lucky I've got some amazing people, both locally and within the romance writing community as a whole. So very fortunate. They're my first port of call.
Excellent. Sandra says she loves the combi on the front, and any of my readers will know I'm a sucker for a combi myself, with the legs out the window. Yeah, that's a really nice touch. I thought that was really clever too.
Yeah, like I was saying to you earlier, I wasn't even aware till I pulled it out again, because it's a while since I read this, that you had the combi on the front. So
Yeah.
our books almost match, Sandy.
Yeah, they do. They do. And Leonie has dropped in to back me up and said it's hilarious that all the publishing houses, because Lee and I are with different publishing houses, have that exact same line when they send you the cover. Must be in their training.
It's so important, I think, to an author as well, because a cover can make or break your book, whether you're traditional or indie published. And I've read some books where they're actually fantastic stories, great books, but I wouldn't pick them up in a bookshop myself. And I think actually this publishing house, and not always big publishing houses, you know, could be a small independent publisher, but sometimes the covers don't tell you enough. You've got to be able to see in a glance from the cover what it is you're picking up, in a way, like what genre it is, and it's got to really whet the appetite of the reader. And if it's not doing that, if it's confusing the reader or if it's muddling the reader, usually they bypass it. So yeah, the cover, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah, it's the first marketing tool that you have. I'm very fortunate that I happen to love my covers. I think I
love your covers, Andy.
And even the new direction that we're going in with the new one, which I released out there on socials last week, you know, I'm really happy with that as well. So, you know, I actually breathe a sigh of relief when I get those emails, but you know, that's not a given. So,
do you usually have a choice of a few covers, Sandy, or how does that work for you?
No, so the way it works for me is because I'm not very organised and don't tend to get my manuscripts in when I'm supposed to, I normally have to brief my publisher on what are the elements in the new book, and then she takes those elements and briefs the cover artist, and then I don't really see it till the end. And, you know, maybe small things I might change. So if I think of my very first one, the Kookaburra Creek Cafe, and there's a vase on the front, let me show you. You know, there's a vase of flowers on the front. I did ask for a specific flower to go into that, and they accommodated that. But no, I basically see the finished product, you know, with a tiny minor tweak here and there. So
I love your Kookaburra as well.
Yeah. So, oh, sorry. Just a quick comment from Helen. The new one that I released last week is Helen's favourite. Well, that's good. That's heartening to know. Now, Alice and the Impossible Game is your first full-length novel, but you have 4 novellas as well, and they're in the same universe, called part of a series called the Passport to Love series. Sorry. So I wanted to ask you, why did you decide to write a series of novellas first?
Mainly because I was listening to advice then from indie authors who always say it's much easier to sell if you're writing in a series. However, I'm not very good at forward thinking and planning for a whole load of books. So they're only in a series in so much as they are sort of holiday-ish romances, fish out of water type romances. I've tried to set them in different countries. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear my dog barking downstairs. Yeah, so Passport to Love, because I thought passport, traveling, love, romance, but they are sort of standalone within that series, different characters. Although occasionally I have got mention of some similar characters. There was a vague idea at the back of my mind I might eventually tie them all up. Some of them come from the same area in the UK, so it may happen one day, but maybe not. I'm not one of these super, you know, successful authors who is able to plan a series of 12 books or something at one go. That's I'm not that forward thinking, unfortunately.
So in Alice and the Impossible Game, we've got Alice who goes on a road trip. Her twin sister abandons her in the middle of the outback. And then we have a musician that comes onto the scene as well. And am I right in that this is a sequel to Alice in Wonderlust?
Yeah, and they're sort of slightly inspired by the the stories that I loved as a kid, Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. So there are a couple of Lewis Carroll quotes in as well. So this is the prequel, Alice in Wonderland. I keep putting it in the wrong place. There we go. And this actually, initially when I wrote it, was a novella called Double Trouble that I published with as part of an anthology with 4 other authors, and it was a New Year's Eve anthology, and the stories were all on this sort of luxury yacht, and it was an event for Australian heroes and things, one of those events to celebrate their heroic deeds and successes and things. And she was a character in that, and she doubles up for her identical twin sister singing with the band on the yacht, and that sort of leads into Alice in the Impossible Game. So it's the same guy from the same band, and her sister, right at the end of this book, her sister has, well, we know she's disappeared. We don't know why. So at the beginning of this book, it's sort of, you find out that things have gone a bit wrong. You don't find out exactly what's gone wrong with her sister, Tilly, who's also known as Twister. But Alice, because she hasn't always been the best of twins, best of sisters in the past, has some making up to do. And so she ends up agreeing to her sister's Impossible Game, which is a game that they had when they were children, when they would they would use their imaginations, and it sort of built and built and built, but eventually got them into quite serious trouble. Anyway, Alice is in trouble with her sister. Her sister knows her as Malice. So we've got Malice and Twister are their sort of alter egos. And her sister sets her 6 impossible tasks. And so that she's got this week where she's really, each morning before breakfast or within 24 hours, she has to try and achieve this impossible task. But caught up in all of this is the lead singer of this band, who needs someone to drive him home to his brother's wedding. So yeah, there's a lot sort of going on there, but hopefully it's a roller coaster of fun sort of thing. But yeah, Alice doing impossible things whilst trying not to fall in love, and yeah, that's really the background to the story.
I should say that today is actually release day for the ebook of Alice in the Impossible Game, and then next week the print book will be available. Kate has said that she's very glad that we're showcasing this book, as she is definitely going to have to put it on her list. Do we need to have read Alice in Wonderlust before we read Alice in the Impossible Game?
You don't need to, but actually it's good to have, I suppose, to get the background story. And at the moment they're all on offer. So I think Alice in Wonderlust, if people wanted to email me, I can even send them a free digital copy. But I think this one at the moment in Australia for the next 5 days-ish is going to be $1.50. So it's not exactly going to break the bank in digital form, not the paper copy, obviously, because I have printing costs to pay for. And this one I think is like 99 cents. So yeah, I think it's good to have read the first one, but it's not totally necessary. So you could just pick up Alice in the Impossible Game and run with that.
Excellent. And we mentioned that it's called the Passport to Love series, and that travel features in this. You have traveled extensively in your life, Anna, I know that. And the books that we're talking about have been set in Sydney, in Outback Australia, in France, in England, New Zealand, I believe, are the settings of the books. How much do your travels inform your writing?
A fair amount. I think traveling and visiting different countries and experiencing different cultures is something I've always been interested in, and I definitely have had itchy feet, wanderlust myself, that's for sure. So I'm actually a New Zealander originally, but I haven't lived there since I was a baby. I was born in Fiji. I've lived in the UK and was educated. I went to boarding school age 7 in the UK, which is why I sound English. But yeah, I've lived in Sri Lanka and Nepal and Indonesia. I renovated a house in France. We had a house over there. So actually, I am going to be writing Twister's story, Tilly's story, and that will be set in the south of France, where I was renovating a house. Although I should think the shenanigans she'll get up to are nothing, unfortunately, like what it was like for me doing all the renovations and things. But yeah, so France, Germany, Scotland. I went to uni in Scotland. I lived in Edinburgh Castle actually as well for quite a while in my military days. Spent a lot of time in Bosnia, probably nearly 2 years of my life. I'm trying to think where else I've lived. Nepal, did I say that? Yeah, anyway, so I've done quite a lot of traveling, love traveling, and I think I'm just very attracted to that whole idea of escapism, I suppose. Although I seem to do a lot of armchair traveling these days. But that's what books are so good for, isn't it?
They are so good for that. Kate has added it to her Kindle, and Jodie has popped in to say happy release day, and it's already on her Kindle and she's looking forward to reading it.
Oh, thanks so much, both of you.
Now, you and I are both part of a group called the Not So Solitary Scribes, and Lee and Jodie are also part of that group. And it's an online writers group, essentially. And, we catch up once a week and people drop in and out and come when they can and that. So I know that you write across other genres, and you mentioned historical fiction earlier. So when you've got historical fiction under your belt and also rom-com under your belt, I wanted to ask you, does one help the other? So when you're writing historical, are there things you've learned about writing from your rom-coms that help with the historical and vice versa, or do they get in the way of each other?
I think I have done a very lengthy and slow apprenticeship in writing. But weirdly enough, I think actually I adopt a slightly different writing voice depending on the genre. I don't think one helps the other. I think just knowledge of story and structure. And also I've done quite a lot of editing for other authors as well. So I've got a bit of an editing background as well. And I think just having that innate understanding of what makes a story and the differences between they're very different actually. So historical, even from the extent that the whole world building and the amount of description that you might include in a historical romance or a historical novel. Mine's more like a historical, almost espionage adventure story, actually. It's very different to the rom-com, but I think that background knowledge helps, but they don't really inform each other. And I think I do, maybe without thinking about it, have a slightly different, maybe narrative voice isn't the right thing to say, but definitely a different tone. I'll read through what I've written for the rom-com and think, okay, is my tone light enough? It's got to have that sort of slightly fun, bubbly, sometimes slightly daft, well, in fact, a lot daft feel to it. And the tone has to be light, because if it was dark and miserable, then I'd be totally missing the mark. So it's more about the tone of my writing voice, I guess.
Excellent. Kylie Fent has just joined us. Hi, Kylie. Lovely to see you here. And Sandra has also downloaded both the Alice books, which is fabulous.
Oh, my goodness. You're fantastic. Thank you so much.
Wow. This is one of the things that I love about the reading and writing community, just how much love there is out there, between authors and readers. It's just, they're good people. Readers and writers are good people.
They really are. And actually, Sandy, whilst we're on that topic, during that whole lockdown and post-lockdown, your group of the Not So Solitary Scribes, I think was just really invaluable for so many of us to share ideas, to chat, to, support each other. And I know that since then, we're still all relying on it to some extent. And I'm not getting on quite as often, but I always know that is a group that I can go to and reach out for advice or for some support and help, which is what's happened with this book. And so big thank you to you for supporting me and letting me come on your podcast, chat show, I'm not sure. Book bites.
What do you call it? Chat show. I like that. I'm Australian books. There we go.
Oh, no, but it's been really helpful to me as an author. So, yeah, what you do behind the scenes, not just writing the book, but all the rest of the stuff, I think is really important to us as a community of writers. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. Oh, and Julie's also popped them on her Kindle as well. There you go. Well done,
Thank
Julie.
you.
Now, before I let you go, Anna, the last chance for anyone to ask a question. I'm just going to pop up where they can where people can find you online. So these are the other four novellas, sorry, in the series, and here are Anna's details that you can find her online. What is next for you? Are we delving back into the Passports to Love series, or are you going to go somewhere else with the next book? Or
actually, I've got a really exciting project. I'm a bit mad. I was having a lunch with some romance writers in Melbourne. When was that? Was it before Christmas? I think it was before Christmas. And I just happened to say to a writing friend of mine, Sandy Barker, I've got this idea. I really, really want to do a Christmas anthology. And so I will be editing and pulling together. I've got 12 amazing Aussie authors. They're all going to be rom-com Christmas stories. I can't give you details just yet because I've told everybody else they're not allowed to talk about it. But anyway, not quite yet. It's embargoed till about June or July. But yeah, so 12 Australian authors, 12 Christmas stories. They're all rom-coms. It should be light. It should be a lot of fun. I've got a lot of admiration for these authors. Yeah, so I'm currently writing. I can tell you a little bit about my story, but not much, because I haven't really got into it in detail yet. I'm still just drafting, but mine is a runaway bride Christmas story. So yeah, all these amazing. And then I probably should get on to Twister, Tilly's story in France, doing a bit of a house reno thing. And some of that is already also written. And after that, I'm not sure, probably more rom-coms. I'd like the age group of my protagonists to shift upwards a little bit. At the moment, they're mainly aimed at that sort of younger, people in their 20s type age. And I really want to, I'm a lot older than that, obviously. So I'd like to shift the age of my protagonists up a little bit, I think, in my next, if I do a series. I think ultimately I want to just write standalone. So not entirely sure where I'll go. I've got 2 historical novels that I'm just sitting on because I'm not sure what to do with them yet. And if I publish those, it'd be under a different name. Yeah, so almost too much that I'm trying to fit in this year, but loving it, loving the writing. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Sandra says the anthology sounds like fun, and I absolutely agree with you, Sandra. I am one of those people that come October, I have those Hallmark Christmas movies on my TV, so that is exactly an anthology aimed at someone like me. And we had a question here, I'm just going to scroll back, from Kylie, asking whether you have a special routine that helps you write.
Okay, so I teach 3 days a week in a local secondary high school in Mount Eliza. So those days, to be honest, I don't get a lot of writing done. I try and do some of the more businessy marketing side of things if I have any energy left by the end of the day, but quite often I'm absolutely zonked. When it's a writing day, like this morning, I've been swimming. I'm a bit of a mad sea swimmer. And I think that's after having a stroke. And with my military background as well, I've always believed in putting myself in uncomfortable situations in order to keep being brave about stuff, if that makes sense. And actually, even though this one says nothing's impossible when you believe, I've changed that what do you call that, tagline, slogan type that. I've changed that, so it's now dare to believe in the impossible. Because I think actually at that age, that was one of the things I didn't have. I didn't have that confidence to believe in myself. I think the military was important in terms of teaching me that I could do so much more than I thought I could do. And I didn't realize how capable I was. Does that make sense? And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I just mean, so often we sit in our comfortable lives and we can do more. So I do still try and push myself to do the mad things occasionally. And sea swimming, weirdly enough, is part of that. I just watched Naiad last night.
Yes.
So I was slightly like, oh, sharks and jellyfish do freak me out a little bit. But I do love sea swimming. And actually, it also calms me down. And And in winter, there is that element of, I just got to do it. I know it's not going to kill me. I just got to do it. And afterwards I come out and I'm buzzing. So for me, starting the writing day with that is very helpful. Coffee is very helpful. I need at least 2 mugs of coffee to get me going. And then when it comes to writing, I tend to just read through a little bit of what I've written the previous day, or if it was a few days before. I'd love to be writing every day, but can't do that with work. Then I will obviously read a bit more to get into it. And sometimes it does take me a little while to get back into the sort of, I don't know, the whole voice and feel and remember what I've written, so I'm not repeating myself again and again. And I'm one of those annoying people that I wouldn't say I've ever suffered from writer's block. I'm the opposite in that once I sit down and start writing, I can't stop. So when my kids were at school, I'd be frequently getting calls at 3 o'clock, 3:30 going, "Mum, are you coming to pick us up or what?" And so I wasn't very good. I should have probably set an alarm. So, and I won't even get up for lunch. And that is probably also, it's not a good practice to get into. It's probably why I had a stroke, because I was far too static. And I had this hole in my heart, which then sent the blood clot to my brain. So I do try and get up a little bit more and move around a bit more now than I used to. But I sit down at the keyboard and I just let it go. And I don't worry too much about writing beautifully, because I think one of the things I suffered from when I first started writing was purple prose and trying too hard, and then the story gets lost. So I really just try and bash out the story, and then when it comes to my various rewrites and redrafts, that's when I think about, okay, let's actually make the language and the syntax and everything else a bit more varied and hopefully beautiful. And I'm far from literary. I'm definitely a commercial author. But yeah, that's usually second draft. But I don't have a routine. I write as long as I can before somebody stops me, usually my husband or the kids.
And Kylie is also asking whether the series is available in physical books.
So all of these are just novellas, my previous 4. These are all available as physical books now. And you can get them from any online retailer. I haven't got them into bookshops yet. And in fact, one of the challenges of indie publishing is that whole distribution, getting books into bookshops. And I was saying to Sandy earlier, that's why I've also chosen not to go exclusively with Amazon. A couple of those actually are still, but I'm looking to go wide so that I can then put them with other distributors. And I'll probably get them into my local bookshops, but it's hard to get them further afield than that, unfortunately. That is one of the big disadvantages. And most of my readers are American. So you'll find that it slightly grates on me being, British English, Australian English, but all my spellings and things are American. And I've had to try and make the vocabulary and everything appeal to an American audience, which is fantastic in some ways, but can also be a little bit frustrating at times. But yeah, so they are available as physical books, but you'd have to go to an online, Booktopia or one of those online retailers to get your physical copy.
Easy enough to do these days, though. And yeah, Kylie's thankful for your answer. And there's just a couple of comments which are referring back to what we were talking about with the reading and writing community. Janet says that one of the things she enjoys about Book Bites is, learning about what happens behind the scenes and the different aspects of writing and publishing, because, that's not widely known what goes on behind the scenes. And Yvonne always enjoys getting to know more about her favourite authors and counting them as friends. Yeah, it's a really lovely relationship that we build, and we enjoy it just as much as authors.
I think authors love to chat to readers, don't they? It's really, it's great to know at the end of the day that somebody at the end of the line enjoys your story or appreciates what you're doing. I think I would write even if nobody read my work anyway, because it's just, I don't know, I feel like it's part of my genetic makeup. My dad was an author as well. So, yeah.
There you go. It has been absolutely lovely chatting with you today, Anna. And as I said, this is now available on my Facebook and on Bookworm TV's Facebook page. So if you have any other questions that you didn't think of, or if you are watching this back later and you think of a question for Anna, pop them into the comments, and we can pop back in over the weekend and have a look at those questions and answer them. Yes, Anna, was that putting you in what?
One final thing. I just and if anybody wants to contact me, I'm lucky in that. So my pen name is my mother's maiden name, and it's quite unusual, Foxkirk. So I'm pretty much, that's my handle everywhere on all social media. So on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. So if anybody does want to get in touch or is having any problems with any of my books or anything, that's where you'll find me. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you. And it's been great chatting. And thank you so much, Sandy, for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
That's okay. We've got people dropping in with their thanks. Julie says thank you. Janet says thank you. Yvonne as well. Lovely to meet you. Sandra's thanking. And there were Jody also thanking us. And I thought there was another question that I missed. There may not have been a question that I missed. So that is it for this week's Book Bites. Just a bit of a heads up. There will be no Book Bites next week. Somebody might be having a big 0 birthday next Friday, so they will be busy with their family, but the following week I will be back with Book Bite. So until then, it's been lovely chatting with you all, and we will see you next time. Thanks, Anna.
Happy birthday, Sandy, and thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.